What makes managing a software development team so difficult? Over the past couple of months, we've conducted probably over 70 interviews for project managers. We had to part ways with one of our previous project managers, and it's really been challenging to discuss project management of software engineering talent with PMs having experience in other fields of study or other industries as a whole. So why is it more difficult, or at least very different from other fields of software, of other fields of project management that are being applied over the course of the entire civilization and all sorts of industries and types of work and whatnot? First one is software engineering entails a wide area of skills. This includes a lot of different people working in the IT department of kind of an IT firm, meaning front-end, back-end developers, DevOps people, networks engineers, system administrators, I don't know, some other server gurus, and all sorts of professions that the project management has to kind of understand. And unlike other real-world jobs, with software engineering, it's simply not as transparent and as easy to actually identify who's responsible for what. It's not like getting a blacksmith and then getting I don't know, someone with I don't know, aviation engineer and just say, yeah, it's very clear that those two professions are different. With software engineering, like pretty much almost everyone is producing code or spends their time in some form of a, terminal and just bashing keyboard all day long. So it may be trickier for people outside of the ID industry to actually recognize that. Second one is strong personalities. It's a fact that software engineers are often competitive or just pushing hard to advance in their careers, and they're trying to be the best at what they do, and it's just a slightly different game. Again, it's not necessarily a rule of thumb, and it doesn't exclude other professions from this, but it's quite common for software engineering, so that also has to be kept into account. Number three is the resource management. Now, in software engineering, resource management is tricky because there are different methodologies, such as Agile and Waterfall. There are different ways of working. For instance, project managers working in agencies, they may lease people half-time or full-time. They may work on one-off projects, on maintenance projects, on retainer projects, or other forms of work. So those different types of qualifications and different types of workflows make it harder to just get adjusted. And moreover, you need to really pull people with different skills and combine them in a team and make sure they work efficiently. Number four, I think, is the technical background. Now, not every project manager is technical, or rather, project managers without experience in IT tend to not be technical, which is fine in theory. And of course, those non-technical managers can take charge of different types of work, but it's still important to understand that not everything is going to be completely clear, especially in terms of implementational details of some of the challenging areas that clients themselves face when working with technical teams. So this one is a little bit tricky. Number five is the ambiguous requirements. And this is kind of an extension of number four, simply because the lack of technical skills means that it's really easy to misunderstand what the client needs or fail to recognize what the requirements actually are. The traditional types of requests, such as, I need a social network, I need a clone of Uber, I need this, I need that. Well, it's never really the same, and it's usually a lot more complicated, and it's a different type of work, and there are so many questions. That's why the requirements are ambiguous, because there are so many questions that can potentially pop up when you start thinking through a specific solution. And it's so easy to just misunderstand a client's requirements, and that's also what makes it trickier to speak with a client, get a proper type of scope of work, and then also align and assign those requirements to the technical team internally, and then coordinate the communication between both parties. Number six is assessing potential. Now, understanding who's a great fit for what and how to actually combine different people to work on different types of activities, of course, it's trickier. So this is really something that also has to be calibrated by the software engineering manager, and something that the project manager has to effectively understand and pick the right roles. Because something I see with inexperienced managers is they identify a top performer in the company and they simply start assessing everything with them and assigning everything to them and speaking with them all day long. So what happens at the end of the day is that the best technical talent of the firm is basically the busiest person in the department, simply because the project managers are actually coordinating with them instead of actually figuring out who's best at what and how to design the entire workflow in the best efficient and most efficient manner at work. So this is something that's truly important and also has to be evaluated. Number 7, I guess, is variety and excitement. Now, software developers really want to keep learning new things, at least the kind of the great type of software engineers. So those engineers, they want to be challenged, and it's a really fine balance between solving complex assignments and learning new things, and at the same time not being burned out by all the complexity in shorter time frames. And again, that also has to be realized, and finding this balance is a bit tricky because eventually you need to allocate a couple boring tasks just so that people can do some manual job for a few hours just to kind of relax, and then you need to assign a few exciting things so that you get the complex work done, and you also challenge them so that the engineers have to learn something new, and it's usually the way it works. So just balancing those without giving all the stupid and boring assignments that simply have to be done and are usually done by juniors, and all the complex, challenging, rough, and tough tasks. Finding this balance makes it also pretty rough, simply because it's hard to actually retain a talent for a longer period of time. And kind of this leads me to another point, I think point 8 or so. It's the faster turnaround. And with software engineering, IT talent really doesn't stick at a single job for longer than several years. And depending on the company, sometimes it's a year and a half, sometimes it's a couple years and a half, sometimes it could be 4 years or so, which is great, but you can't really work. I mean, very few companies can afford to retain a technical talent for many years, speaking, 5, 10, 15 years. It's really hard to actually make it happen. And as a result, there are lots of different opportunities for software engineers. It's really hard to find a job as a software engineers. They're in demand, so they don't really give a second thought to a specific business problem if they have a bunch of different opportunities waiting on LinkedIn, in their emails, and lots of other interviews by various companies. So again, it's a fine line because you don't want to really spoil your team and just let them do whatever they want, because this doesn't make business sense whatsoever. But it's also a fine balance between pushing them to actually get the job done, because at some point they may simply say, well, it's not worth it, and just jump to the next place. And the last part is leadership. It's really, in order to stick in a job, and kind of a common saying is that employees quit managers, not job. So having said that, it's really important for the technical project manager, the project manager of a technical team, to be a great leader, to be kind of working closely with the team, to be empathetic with the team, and trying to find a great way to get the job done without screwing the team. So having all those things aligned at the same time make it slightly more different and a little bit harder to just lead a software engineering team than some other jobs that have more straightforward types of jobs, professions, qualifications that make it slightly easier to lead a software engineering team.